Hello, and welcome to the Blessed by Angels podcast, where we are delivering messages from beyond. Having soul to soul connection is not a bad thing. It's not wrong. You're not unholy for having connection to the spirits. It's a matter of intention. Welcome to the Blessed by Angels podcast. My name is Jenn Gilbreth. Ever since I was a little girl, I have felt deeply connected to the angelic realm. Over the years, I have dedicated my time and energy towards delivering messages from beyond. Yes, that's right. I talk to dead people, although I don't necessarily consider them dead. In many ways, they are much more alive than us in this physical realm. On this podcast, I will be channeling messages from spirit. Whether you tune in each week for the new messages, or feel like picking a message at random, this podcast is designed for spirit to lead you to the messages for you here and now. These messages have changed the way I view and play in life. I hope that these messages can do the same for you. In this section, I just completed September, a month of spirit. And I felt really called to, at the beginning of the month, to really debunk the heaviness and the density and the misconception of the spirit world. Let's be honest here. I think that many of us are patterned to believe that the spirit world has a lot of darkness, which it does, don't get me wrong. But we have these scary movies that bring in all of this horror and this darkness, but are there really that many movies of light and of positive connection to the spirit realm? Not as often. There are, but not as much. And not as much spoken about either. And as we are stepping into Halloween, I feel like this is such a great space to acknowledge the light and the dark in all things and to bring forth beautiful messages about that. And that's just what we talked about in our month of spirit, where really, a lot of times we've had scary instances, or maybe when we were younger, we had visitations and they were scary. And we're like, I don't want to feel this. This is too scary for me to even understand. Like, why is this showing up? And I'm just going to tell you, you are not alone. You are not bad. You are not wrong if you feel this way. Society has taught us that having spiritual connection is not a flow that we have access to, really, that we have to look towards somebody else or something else to give us guidance. When in truth, we have the answers within. We are connected to the divine. We are divine. We are divine dust particles. We are that stardust. We are that magic. And so often we're taught, no, look to somebody else. Or unless someone says so, then it is. But why can't we say so? Why can't we take back the magic of having soul and spirit conversations and connections freely without it being weird or bad or wrong or mentally unstable? Because we are all spirit. We will always be spirit, regardless of if we're in this body or a next body or the next body. We are always spirit first. We always will return to spirit after this physical journey. So knowing that, it can give us great power that even if we have had scary or dark or negative experiences, we are full of spiritual light. And there is light and dark in all things. Divine duality is part of life. It's actually a very beautiful aspect of why we are here. It is why we are here and how we are here. So having that been said, having soul to soul connection is not a bad thing. It's not wrong. You're not unholy for having connection to the spirits. It's a matter of intention. And we can connect into the light or to the dark or to both if we are unaware of the power that we hold within ourselves. Oof, that's a big truth right there. I can feel it in my whole body. But if we fear the dark, I have a friend who always says you cannot selectively choose emotions. You can't decide to just be happy Because if you cut off being sad, you cut off being happy. And that is kind of true with the spirit realm too. If we are so afraid of the darkness, that can actually cut us off from connecting to the light because we can't close it all down. Like we can close it all down, but it's harder to open. So, having that been said, in this month of spirit, we really talked about how there is light and dark in all things. And there are ways to set intention to create sacred space around you so that you feel more aligned to have positive experiences, so that you can feel the magnitude of who you truly are. And I like to describe this as layers of light and layers of dark. There are times where we can connect into the dark side. And maybe there's an earthbound soul who is stuck. That's a thing. There are earthbound souls who maybe they haven't accepted that they've passed, or there's been so much chaos in their life that they don't know how to navigate or move forward. And they're stuck, or they're afraid, or they're sad, or they're lonely on the other side. I had an experience where I had my guide, Freya. She was teaching me about earthbound spirits. And it was really kind of, I felt really bad. She was showing me and helping me to see how I could help earthbound spirits cross over, or for them to find acceptance. And having that been said, it was like a 4-hour initiation that her and I went through. And she was just showing me how to help these earthbound energies. And I'll give you an example of this male. He had lost his daughter in a car accident, and he was the one driving. And he had been drunk driving. And a few months after she passed, he ended up ending his life. And he came forward, and she was just showing me the sadness that he felt, and the blame and the grief and the heaviness that overtook him, that he literally didn't want to survive because he was feeling such darkness. And she showed with me there are times where we have something that happens, and in order for us to keep ourselves safe, it's almost like we have a fragmented part of our soul that can hide. It can be hidden somewhere to keep ourselves safe, so we don't have to relive that or think that or experience that. And so she showed me him walking around feeling like a zombie, like not knowing how to navigate or how to move forward, but just like, where's my daughter? I have to find my daughter. I got to find my daughter. And finally, as me and her stood there looking at him, he looked at us and was like, had this realization of like, what am I doing? And so she showed me how spirits on the other side help those who are earthbound. And so she says, hey, come with me. I want to show you in the spirit realm where we can find that aspect of his soul that's been missing. And this was before he could pass through the rainbow bridge, or to really find acceptance for his life, to have forgiveness, to make amends, and to move forward. And so she had me put on like this cloak. It was just like a coat that I had that I put the hood on. And she's like, we're going to go to the realm of death. And I was like, oh, okay, this is a little bit scary. And she's like, there's nothing to fear. But it's almost like hiding yourself away so you don't get caught, or people don't like the darkness doesn't have to know that you're there. And so it's like we were going through kind of like this tunnel and this cave to help find this lost part of this man's soul. And she brought me to like this dark cave where around me was like these heavier entities. And she kind of like shielded us. And that's what the hood was there to help with, is like this shielding of like not letting that into myself or bringing it into the physical realm, kind of like this hidden, invisible cloak kind of an energy. And we stopped and she showed me, she said, everyone here has a lost, fragmented soul. And they don't know how to move forward or so much of them has been taken, maybe unintentionally or on purpose, that they feel lost and afraid and alone, and they don't know what to do. So they pack together to try to have a sense of unity. And if someone is weak or wounded, wounded people wound others. Misery loves company. And she says that they're so often that they're here in this dark spot because they're all in pain together. So if we can look at the darkness also as a way of it being this longing, the sense of loss, it helps give us a greater understanding. And all of a sudden she says, where can you see that part of his soul? And all of a sudden it was like I saw this bright blue flashing. It was like a gem. And I was like, right there. So we went and grabbed it, and I put it under my cloak in my in the spirit realm, kind of in space, and we started walking back. And all of a sudden we were by this man again. And I held out this gem. And I just felt myself saying, I know you've been through so much, and I know you miss your daughter, but staying here is not ever going to bring you closer to her. It's time to forgive. It's time to embrace what happened and find a sense of relief. And I passed him that stone, and he grabbed it and put it right by by where his heart would be. And it was like placing it back into his heart and shifting out in this bright light. And then I saw my guide Freya work with him, and she kind of like drummed around him and helped him. It was like all of a sudden she wiped his eyes with like this mud, and it was there for him to see all of the good that also was experienced in life. And seeing his daughter and knowing that she was ready and wanted to be with him. But in order to do so, he had to sit with himself first. And we sat there with him as he cried and released and let go so that he could forgive himself fully before anyone else could forgive him, because other people already had. And then she showed us how those who were still living were in such a sad space of grief, losing both of them. And they had already forgiven him because it was so much in their space, it was causing them to not be able to live if they kept onto that heaviness. And you could see a sense of freedom within him. Wow, how beautiful. It just felt so amazing. And at the end, it was like all of a sudden I could see this spiraling vortex of energy. And I could see this little girl coming out to say, Dad, you're finally home. I don't blame you. I'm so happy that you are finally here. It was such a beautiful and powerful experience. Knowing that sometimes if we have visitations or we feel a heaviness around us, 9 out of 10 times it's because there's suffering or because there's a lack. There's a lack. And when we can trust a guide and we can call upon someone or call upon the archangels, we don't have to be responsible for someone else's progression on the other side. But there have been times, even when I've had sessions with someone and someone was trying to come forward, but they were in like kind of a darker vibe of an energy, or they were in a space of lack. Sometimes I'll actually be like, hey, I actually feel like I need to do some work on my side before continuing on with this session. So can we take a pause and reschedule? And then I'll spend some time helping this soul find peace and healing and understanding so that they can fully deliver the message that their soul higher self wants to, but maybe part of them is still stuck here. Because not everyone finds light right when they cross over. And some people don't want to because they're in so much space of lack. Or maybe they're angry. Or maybe they're unbelieving that they can be forgiven, that they can forgive others. And when we identify so much with circumstances that happen to us in life, those too can also carry us forward in the spirit realm. If we over identify with maybe a wound or a trauma or a heaviness, and that defines who we are we open? And what would our life be if we allowed that to be released? And a lot of times, if it's spent so much time defining who we are, it's almost scary to release that. And that can take over our life as well. And so knowing that there is light and dark, and I'm not saying that you have to go through and feel the darkness. That's not part of the journey. That's not what we're talking about here. But when we can have a sense of understanding, we are powerful humans. And we get to decide what layer of light or dark we want to connect in with. And maybe we feel really called to go to the underworld. And maybe we feel really called to work with those dark energies that are stuck. And maybe that's where we feel our soul's calling. When we have guides, when we can call upon others to help support us in the spirit realm, we are not fully responsible for what that person has to go through. They might be coming to us, and most of the time, they just want to be acknowledged. And that's what we can do in this physical realm. If you find yourself wanting to work with those who are stuck or in limbo, or what people say purgatory is, that's what I would say limbo is. Hey there, I wanted to take a brief moment to thank you so much for listening and being a part of Blessed by Angels podcast. I have found that our angelic team wants to help remind us who and why we are earthside at this present moment. The more that we remember the angelic support that we are given, the easier it is for us to live life to the fullest. So if this message or any of the previous messages from the podcast have really stuck out to you, I would encourage you to send them to anyone who you feel could benefit from the messages. Or if you feel prompted, I would love for you to leave a review on any of the platforms that you are listening on. I would love to hear your feedback. Blessings. We even can just acknowledge them. Like, I know that you lived a good life. Maybe you made choices that weren't the best, and maybe you regret those choices. But also, you were looking at life through a sense of all you knew. That doesn't take away accountability. But when we can acknowledge where someone's been and then call upon our guides to help them move forward, it really does help differentiate the light and the dark. And the last thing I want to acknowledge here is that if you invite darkness into your life, if you're watching scary movies or going to horror houses and talking about all of the dark things that happen all of the time in the world, you will bring that into life. If you're listening to heavy, dense music all the time, and that's fine. I'm not saying you're a bad or wrong person, but acknowledging what energy and what vibe that brings with you. When someone's watched a scary movie and they can't get over the images of how those things happened, or you just keep reliving the fear and it's toxic, it sucks you in. But not only that, because you're getting comfortable or you're heightened in that space, you open up this portal for other scarier, heavier, dense things to show up in life. So also understanding that is like, if you decide to watch those scary things, well, how can you close the energy portal that you just opened? And also, is it serving your soul's purpose? Because that's also a way of dabbling into the darkness is by what we bring into our space. because that does have a direct effect on what energies are around us, which is exactly why my guide Freya had me wear this cloak, had me wear this hood so that I was protecting my physical body, but also protecting my soul. Because if someone is activating at a high frequency, they're in a space of joy, of love, of magic, of wonder. It's going to be harder for the density, the dense spirits, the darkness to come into our space. But if our light is dim and we're already in that space, it's easier for more to just settle into our space. So it's really all about the frequency. Your frequency matters. What you read, think, look at, experience will have a direct effect on your connection to the spirit realm in light or dark as well. And I will take this one step further, is that all of the things that we see in movies, the demons, the darkness, all of that, it came from somewhere. And there is that darkness in the spirit realm. But we don't have to connect into that. If we know who we are and we know our higher self, our purpose connecting to the spirit realm, we don't even have to fear that. I have someone who has like really heavy stuff going on in their house, and it's like so overwhelming for them. And as I've started to work in this process, I shield myself in that space and call upon the archangels and my guides to help move that energy and shift it and release those darknesses. I don't have to do it, nor am I allowing that into my physical body or into my space. My guides have got it covered. They know what to do more than I do. I can be a vessel and I can share and I can acknowledge that spirit or that density because everything wants to be acknowledged. And once it's acknowledged, it takes away the fog so that somebody can navigate and move forward. So as far as light and dark, I just really wanted to touch upon that today. I feel like it's such a taboo topic and connecting into the spirit realm. Oh, you're being deceived by the devil and da 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 da. But really, doesn't have to be the case. And a form, we also talked about this in the month of spirit is, we get worried about dipping into the darkness or using black magic. But what we use, the words that we use, can be a form of black magic. If we are casting ill will or talking bad about somebody, that right there, that's dark magic. Because we have this web of life that connects us to all things. And if you imagine me and you being connected by this purple web, and I can send love and support to you when you're having a tough time. People say, I'll pray for you. Well, it's this energy of sending it to that person and then having that activate their body or their cellular level or their auric field. So let's say someone's really sick or sad. And if you think about, let's think about an apple. If you think about the frequency of an apple, and then let's think about a Twinkie and the frequency of a Twinkie. The apple has got a totally different frequency, right? So when we're activating and we're living in a space of light, we can have a higher frequency. It buzzes quicker. Where when we're sad or dark or depressed or heavy, or maybe we're battling darkness, it's easy for our energy to slow down, like the vibration slows. It's more cloggy, it's more stuck. So when we send this frequency, we send like this surge of high frequency to someone who has that like the slower space. When we send that to them, it can act as a way of activating that frequency to go quicker so that they can also start to improve or to feel a little bit better. So if we are sending out dark magic or this heavy toxic, it's literally clogging up that person's space so that their frequency is lowered. It's denser, it's slower, and vice versa. It also causes our frequency to lower because we're sending out that darkness. On top of, if we really want to talk about dark magic, is taking away someone's agency to believe or to have their own validation or to have their own answers to come to them. We do not have to look to somebody else for us to receive the answers. We can receive them within us. But having to look to someone else at all times and do that and look at that is also a form of dark magic where they are pulling away our God-given right. That's also a form of dark magic. And then sending ill will, casting harm, showing up, saying all these heavy things, wishing negativity upon somebody. That's also where we step out of alignment. And so really, if we look at it in that aspect, we have this web of life that we're all connected to. And the higher frequency we can have, and the more we can send that love to others, that healing, the better the world is going to feel and be raised so that we can help those who have more of that slow, lethargic energy. And we all are going to have it at some point. And we're all going to practice this space of sending out ill will. And you'll feel that toxicity in your soul. So it's also good to check, where am I at in that? What am I sending out? Or am I sucking in everybody else's energy? Am I that energy vampire that is sucking people dry, that they don't want to be around me because I am exhausting, because I'm searching for so much and I don't know what to do? Well, have you gone here? Have you gone to your heart? Do you have parts of your soul that are fragmented? If so, what forms of healing can you do? There's soul retrievals that you can experience, or really it's all about reclaiming your soul's authentic higher self, knowing that what you experience is part of the journey, but it does not define who you are. Just like that man who was drunk driving and lost his daughter. That was an experience, and he looked at what he was trying to numb himself from. And once he looked at that, he could see that those experiences were part of his soul's lessons, and they helped his soul grow so much more. But it wasn't until he actually looked at it for a soul lesson that he was able to come home to the remembrance that he is a spirit first and foremost. Such a beautiful reminder. So I hope that you enjoyed this message on the podcast. I know it's talking about light and dark and the taboo, whatever. But really, it's all about remembering who we truly are. And we are a soul in this physical body. And it's beautiful to be here, even though it doesn't always feel that way. We have guides cheering us on all of the time. You are not alone. You don't have anything to be afraid of. When you remember who you are, you remember where you came from and where you will go. And doesn't that make you feel better? Anyways, I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you for tuning in to the Blessed by Angels podcast. It is such an honor to deliver these messages from beyond. If you want to connect deeper to your angelic realm and the support team that you have, I have a plethora of resources on my website at blessedbyangels.org. And of course, I'll leave the link in the show notes. You are connected to the divine. Having divine connection is an innate ability that each and every one of us have. Before we came here, we were spirit. And after we leave this realm, we are introduced back into the spirit world. So having spirit-to-spirit conversations and knowings and understandings are innately and infinitely who you truly are. When we step into this body, we tend to forget. We are not separated from the divine. There is just a lack of remembrance. Thank you so much for being a part of this podcast, and I look forward to delivering more messages from beyond.